Claudia was the kind of person who found comfort in routines. Every Saturday morning, her ritual included a visit to the local supermarket, a small building nestled between the city streets where the noise of traffic turned into a dull background hum. Her path through the aisles was almost always the same, a well-trodden route that took her from fresh produce to detergents to the checkout. However, that Saturday would be different. As she approached the cereal section, a piece of paper abandoned in a corner caught her attention. It was a shopping list, written in tight, neat handwriting. On a sudden impulse, driven by curiosity and a desire to break the monotony of her day, Claudia decided to pick it up. The list contained a series of items: salt, dish detergent, bleach, plant antiparasitic, and a variety of foods. "Let's make it a game," thought Claudia, smiling at the unusual challenge. She began to collect the listed items, moving through the aisles with a new purpose. Each product seemed mundane individually, but as she accumulated them in her cart, a sense of unease began to creep inside her. Salt, detergent, bleach, antiparasitic. There was a strange resonance in that combination, an undertone she couldn't decipher right away. After finishing her shopping, Claudia headed to the checkouts, the list clenched in her hands. While waiting her turn, she reflected on the strangeness of her errand. Who would ever need these items together? She wondered. She couldn't find a satisfactory answer. Once home, she decided to investigate a bit about that combination of products. She turned on her computer and started searching. That's when a chill ran down her spine. Salt, detergent, bleach, antiparasitic. Separately harmless. Together, they could create a dangerously toxic mixture. But why would someone want to buy all these products together? Was the author of that list planning to poison someone? That evening, Claudia couldn't get the idea out of her mind that, by collecting those items, she had unwittingly become an accomplice in a nefarious plan. She decided she had to do something. She returned to the supermarket, hoping to find clues, or perhaps to meet the mysterious author of the list. As soon as she returned to the supermarket, Claudia sought out the manager to share her concerns about the shopping list she had found. She expected understanding, perhaps even gratitude for shedding light on a potential danger. Instead, the manager listened with disconcerting vagueness, offering little more than a distracted glance at the list, and a "I'll take care of it, don't worry," that sounded empty and dismissive. Unsatisfied, Claudia approached another employee, hoping for a different reaction. However, her experience was similar. Formal listening, minimal interest, and no concrete action. This series of reactions left her both frustrated and alarmed. She felt there was something deeper, a danger being ignored. With a growing sense of responsibility, she decided to turn to the police. There, her concerns were taken seriously. The officers listened attentively, nodded in front of the list of items, and started investigating without downplaying her fears. In the weeks that followed, a thorough investigation unveiled a shocking truth. One of the supermarket employees, known for his solitary behavior and some past conflicts, harbored deep resentment towards his boss. This grudge, grown in the shadow of monotonous workdays, had driven him to plan a final act of vengeance, poisoning his superior by putting a lethal mixture of chemicals in a drink during lunch break. The police discovered concrete evidence of the plan through messages saved on the employee's cell phone and testimonials from colleagues who, faced with the severity of the situation, recalled suspicious behaviors and comments made in the past. The employee was arrested before he could carry out his plan, thanks to the timely intervention based on the information provided by Claudia. The news of the arrest spread quickly, eliciting a mix of shock and relief among the supermarket employees and the local community. Claudia was praised for her determination and courage in following her instinct, a decision that had prevented a tragedy. The story I'm about to tell is incredible and connects with the world of the occult and paranormal. Emily was a college student who had just moved to a small town to continue her studies. The town had its own charm, with its cobblestone streets and a small supermarket that seemed straight out of the 1950s movie. It was there that her eyes met Jack's, the boy at the frozen food counter. He had a somewhat neglected appearance, but deep eyes and a shy smile that struck her from the very first moment. During one of her daily visits, Jack found the courage to leave her a note, hidden among the ice cream packages Emily was examining. It was an invitation for coffee, written in elegant handwriting she wouldn't have expected from him. Surprised, but intrigued, Emily accepted. Their meeting was enjoyable, and Jack proved to be an interesting conversationalist, able to make her laugh and think. However, over time, he began to show more insistent behavior. Constant messages, unexpected appearances outside the library or Emily's apartment, attention that quickly became suffocating. Emily began to feel trapped, especially when she noticed that Jack's obsession was manifesting in a disturbing manner at the supermarket too. Every time she entered, she found him at his place, watching her with a fixed gaze, silently following her through the aisles without ever getting too close. The situation escalated when, one evening, Emily found dozens of notes stuck on her car, all with the same message: "I'm watching you." Frightened, she decided to confront Jack to ask him to leave her alone, but he denied any involvement, with a sincerity in his eyes that made her waver. That night, terror knocked on her window. A dark silhouette was staring at her from outside, motionless. She called the police, but when they arrived, they found no one. The officers suggested it might have been a bad dream, but Emily knew it wasn't. In the following days, the appearances and whispers became more frequent and threatening, until she found a message written in lipstick on her front door. "You can't escape me." Desperate, Emily, after some time with a bit of courage, returned to the supermarket to confront Jack, but found his place empty. Asking around, she learned something shocking. Jack had died in a car accident months before, right when Emily had started feeling observed. Shaken by the revelation, Emily realized that what was haunting her was something far darker and inexplicable. The supermarket, with its dark corners and cold air leaking from the refrigerators, had become the stage for an endless nightmare. Emily knew she had to find a way to escape this obsession before it was too late. With a heavy heart and a mind clouded by fear, Emily faced a reality that defied all logic. The idea that Jack's obsession could persist beyond death was something she couldn't understand or accept. Determined to end this nightmare, she began seeking help, turning not only to the police, but also to experts in paranormal phenomena, hoping to find an explanation, or better yet, a solution. Her research led her to discover that the supermarket had been built on land that previously housed an old factory, the site of a tragic accident that had claimed the lives of many workers, including, it was said, a young man in love with the owner's daughter. Past stories suggested that the land was cursed, a place of great sorrow and loss, where restless souls found no peace. Armed with this new knowledge and unshakable determination, Emily decided to confront Jack's spirit directly. One night, after mentally and spiritually preparing herself, she entered the supermarket after closing hours, gaining access thanks to a friend who worked there. The air was cold, and the dark aisles were illuminated by the light of the torch Emily held tightly in her hand. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the sound of her steps and her racing heart. Arriving at the frozen food counter, the place she felt was the center of the energy that bound her to Jack, Emily stopped and, with a trembling but clear voice, began to speak.
"Jack, if you're here, please let me go,"
she said, her words laden with emotion.
"I don't know why you're tied to this place, or to me, but you need to find peace. You have to let us both go."
For what seemed like an eternity, nothing happened. Then, suddenly, a cold wind enveloped her, and the supermarket's lights flickered violently. Emily felt Jack's presence next to her, a dense and sad energy, but not threatening. The appearances and messages stopped that night. Emily, never knew for sure what had actually happened in the supermarket, or if her words had truly reached Jack. However, she felt a lightness she hadn't felt in months, as if a weight had been lifted from her heart. Over time, Emily's life returned to normal, but the experience changed her in indelible ways. She had faced her fears, confronting the incomprehensible, and emerged stronger. The supermarket remained a part of the city, but for Emily, it became a symbol of resilience, a reminder that she looked into the darkness and found the light. Facing an ordeal that defied explanation, Emily learned the importance of seeking help and confronting one's fears, no matter how paranormal or unexplainable they may seem. Her story spread, becoming a beacon of hope for others experiencing their own unexplainable phenomena, reminding them that they are not alone and that sometimes courage and a willingness to face the unknown can bring peace. The supermarket continued to operate, its aisles and freezers witness to a story that blurred the lines between this world and the next. Employees and customers alike felt a subtle shift, a sense of calm that hadn't been there before, as if acknowledging the peace Emily had fought so hard to achieve. As for Emily, she became an advocate for those experiencing paranormal harassment, sharing her story in forums and support groups, offering her insights and support. She realized that her encounter with Jack, while terrifying, had given her a purpose and a message to share. That love and determination can transcend even the boundaries of death, and that sometimes the most haunting mysteries have resolutions that bring not just closure, but healing. Her experience at the supermarket turned from a haunting memory to a pivotal chapter in her life, teaching her about the depths of the human spirit and the power of compassion. Emily's journey through fear and darkness into understanding and peace inspired many, showing that even in the face of the paranormal, one can find a way back to the light. Jessica worked as a cashier at a large city Walmart, hiding a secret that made her unique. She had the ability to foresee people's near future simply by making eye contact. It was a talent she had discovered as a child and had learned to manage discreetly, never revealing it to anyone. One day, like many others, among the numerous people who passed through her checkout, a young pregnant woman named Rachel appeared. Rachel radiated happiness, and her smile was contagious. As Jessica scanned her items, she began to exchange pleasantries with her, complimenting her appearance and the joy she seemed to carry with her. However, when their eyes met, Jessica had a sudden and shocking vision. She saw Rachel enveloped in a dark aura, with rapid, nefarious events unfolding in her life. She felt an urgent need to do something to help this stranger. After completing the transaction, Jessica felt compelled to do more. She decided to offer to read the tarot cards for Rachel, hoping to provide her with some warnings or advice that could help her navigate future dangers. Initially surprised, but then intrigued, Rachel accepted the invitation, drawn to the kindness and mystery surrounding the cashier. The tarot reading took place at Jessica's home, where the cards revealed a series of tragic events that would affect Rachel: betrayals, losses, and deceptions. Jessica advised her to be careful of the people in her life, especially those closest to her. As days passed, the predictions began to come true one after the other, leaving Rachel devastated and confused. In a moment of desperation, she decided to confront her ex-husband, David, whom she had left shortly before discovering she was pregnant. It was then that she discovered the truth. David, unable to accept the end of their relationship, had hired Jessica to instill fear and uncertainty in Rachel's life, hoping to ruin her emotionally and win her back by exploiting her vulnerability. Rachel, heartbroken, but now aware of the manipulation she had suffered, decided to face the situation with courage. With the help of trusted friends and legal support, she took actions to protect herself and her future child, promising to rebuild her life away from the darkness sown by David. Faced with a difficult choice when Jessica, the fortune teller who initially she believed was just a simple cashier, revealed she could remove the curse she had indirectly helped create for a price, of course. Jessica admitted she had been hired by David, but now claimed she was ready to help Rachel free herself from the adverse effects of her predictions, for an additional sum of money. This proposal threw Rachel into a sea of doubts. On one hand, she desperately wanted to free herself from any dark ties that might still weigh on her future, and that of the child she was carrying. On the other hand, the idea of paying more to someone she now considered a mercenary of the occult disgusted her. After sleepless nights of reflection and long discussions with her dearest friends, Rachel decided to reject Jessica's offer. But Jessica had another card to play. She offered to cast a curse on David as revenge for what he had done to Rachel. For a moment, Rachel's wounded heart wavered at the temptation to make David suffer as he had made her suffer. However, after careful reflection, she decided she did not want to stoop to his level. She did not want anger and the desire for revenge to define who she was or who she wanted to be, especially now that she was about to become a mother. Rachel communicated her decision not to proceed with either the removal of the curse or revenge against David to Jessica. Even though this meant living with the uncertainty of what the future might still hold for her, she felt it was the only way to maintain her dignity and build a positive future for herself and her baby. In the weeks and months that followed, Rachel worked hard to rebuild her life. She surrounded herself with positive and supportive people, dedicated time and resources to preparing for the arrival of her baby, and found comfort and strength in the small daily joys. Over time, fear and anxiety gave way to cautious hope and a renewed sense of personal power. As for David, Rachel chose to cut ties definitively, entrusting the matter to her lawyers to ensure he could no longer harm her in any way. She decided the best way to curse him was to live well, far from his toxic influence. In a quiet American suburb, Sarah worked as a cashier at a chain supermarket, appreciated by colleagues and customers alike for her always positive and helpful demeanor. Her personal life was equally fulfilling, shared with her husband Mike, a middle school teacher she deeply loved. However, the serenity of their existence was disturbed by the obsession of Nick, a new employee in the supermarket's fruit and vegetable department. Nick was a charismatic man, but his gaze sometimes became unsettling. From the first day he showed a particular interest in Sarah, which she kindly rejected, explaining that she was happily married. Despite this, Nick did not accept the refusal and began to look for increasingly invasive ways to insert himself into Sarah's life, from stalking her home to sending inappropriate messages and unwanted gifts. The situation escalated one evening when Nick, blinded by jealousy and obsession, planned to assault Mike to remove him from Sarah's life. He waited for Mike in the supermarket parking lot, armed with a knife. The assault was violent and sudden. Nick struck Mike from behind as he was putting groceries in the car. Fortunately, the attack was not fatal. Mike managed to defend himself, although he suffered serious injuries. Sarah, who had just finished her shift, came out in time to see Nick flee and find Mike injured on the ground. In a panic, she cried for help, attracting the attention of some passersby who immediately called for emergency services. Mike was rushed to the hospital, where doctors were able to stabilize him and save his life. The police began their investigation, and thanks to testimonies from other employees and recordings from the supermarket's security cameras, it was possible to reconstruct the incident and arrest Nick. During the interrogation, Nick admitted his plan to eliminate Mike, convinced that without him, he would have had a chance with Sarah. Sarah spent the following nights in the hospital, watching over Mike while grappling with the fear and distress of what had happened. Their lives had been overturned by an unprovoked obsession and an act of incomprehensible violence. However, despite the pain and fear, Sarah and Mike found comfort in each other, strengthening the bond between them. Once discharged from the hospital, Mike took several months to fully recover, both physically and emotionally. Meanwhile, Sarah decided to leave her job at the supermarket, unable to return to the place that had brought her so much pain. Together, they made the decision to move to another city, seeking to leave the horrors they experienced behind and start a new chapter in their lives. Nick was tried and sentenced to several years in prison for attempted murder and stalking. The story of Sarah and Mike became a case study in awareness campaigns against domestic violence and stalking, highlighting the importance of legal and psychological support for victims.